Goodyear says no excuses for Texas tire issues, but lists aggressive team air pressures, changing track conditions, and the resin as reasons. Spot on, spot off. Freddie.
Well, I thought it was interesting that he said that there's no excuses right after he gave about 4 or 5 excuses, and none of them were Goodyear. Listen, I'm going to be honest. I still think this is on the teams. It's obviously they're both playing a part in it, but I think that maybe a little bit more the majority of the blame lays on the teams. And I seen Rodney's comments on it this morning, and he basically is admitting that. Like they're saying that these teams are lowering the air pressure in these tires to get the diffuser down, to get the diffuser to optimal downforce. And we've said it on here before, if these teams figure out a way to go faster, even if it's not safe, they're going to try it, and they're going to push the limits as far as they can. And it's just a risk versus reward situation. You're going to go faster with lower air pressure and your diffuser down. You might blow a tire. There's no coincidence that just about everybody we've seen blow a tire yesterday was leading the race. There's that. They claim the resin. Obviously, speeds had picked up. After the rain delay, we were going a lot faster because of the cooler temperature. And then to Rodney's other point was this was all happening in 3 and 4. The 2 different style corners. You got try to get your car as low as possible for max downforce in 1 and 2, but now you've got a higher speed corner in 3 and 4 that you're kind of hauling ass through, and that's where we saw, I think, all of the issues. Cole Custer blew a tire in turn 1. I think everybody else was either entry to 3 or exit to 4. So listen, I think this is still on the teams. I think obviously Goodyear needs to work with them to make sure that they know, like, you can't go below. I feel like we used to have an air pressure deal. Like, you go below this air pressure, but you're done. Like, that's the minimum air pressure, and for whatever reason we don't have that, or teams are just not obeying by it, and that's the issue. The issue seems like it's just low air pressure.
I think we talked about this, Brett, to you yesterday, Freddie. A lot of the times I noticed that the manufacturers all have issues. Like last week, and it was Ford. This weekend, I feel like it was a lot of Toyotas. Is it because all the teams are working on those lower tire pressures, or is there something else to it?
I'm not a tire guy. I'm not a crew chief, but I only have the ability to know what they tell me. And I talked to a crew chief last night, and I said, and his car did not blow any right side tires. It had no problems. Okay. I said, is this a Goodyear issue? And he said 100%. So he disagrees with everything that Freddie just said from a standpoint of liability. Now, with that said, I spoke to another crew chief this morning. And the biggest question I asked him is, we're headed to 2 more 1.5 miles. We have Vegas coming up, and we have Homestead coming up. Is there concern leading into those 2 races? And he said 100%. Having spoke to a third crew chief and some drivers, I feel like the liability here is across the board. I feel like NASCAR needs to listen to a guy like Rodney in terms of letting teams not be limited in the areas where they're limited. I feel like Goodyear, look, we saw a lot of left side tire problems to start the year. Those went away. Well, how do you think that happened? Somebody spent money and somebody fixed it. Now you got right side tire problems, which is actually arguably more dangerous.
Oh, 100%.
More dangerous. So I think you've got to have a table just like this, the one we're sitting at, and you got to have a NASCAR guy at the table. You got to have a competition guy at the table, like a Greg Zippadelli, a Brian Patty, somebody that's been there, done that for many years, understands all the different dynamics as it pertains to racing, and then you've ultimately got to have Goodyear sitting there. I do not think Freddie thinks it's majority on the teams. I would agree with that if we were seeing it happen in different scenarios. The fact that you got the lead and you went the fastest, when are you going to run the fastest? It doesn't matter who you are.
Out front.
You're going to run the fastest you run all night when you got the lead. And when you got the lead, you blew a tire. And it didn't matter what manufacturer you were. It didn't matter what driver you were. And it just
the lap count was almost identical.
33 to 38 laps. Look out. That's just the way it was. So to me, I think you have to. There's just too many variables to say what's wrong. But it seems in this scenario that everybody's wrong, and they better get it figured out because these guys are already fussing about how hard these hits are in these cars, and we don't. I mean, Chase Elliott's comments were on point. I mean, they were spot on. He was like, "It doesn't really matter to me. I just hope nobody gets hurt."
Fair, TJ.
I'm spot off. I think it's a mixture of both because teams are always going to be aggressive. But the weird part is you think throughout the race, you see an issue start, you think guys would, back off it a little bit. And I don't know. You still see it kept 35-ish laps, and somebody was popping a tire. And it was always a guy up near the front most of the time because they're running so fast. And as the track cooled off, it got even faster there for a while before we got the lightning delay. It was getting faster and faster and faster. 1 and 2 was being covered with shade, and it just wasn't. Everything was adding up to not for a bad scenario, but I don't know how you fix it. But
I mean, if you're a crew chief and you're a driver,
I would not want to be the crew chief yesterday.
If you're a crew chief and or a driver though, and you know this situation is happening, you're going to do everything that you can to not blow a tire.
That's what we did. We kept pitting and putting tires on. We were talking about putting 14 lappers on at one point because it had less laps, just to, and we played the safe route. I know I was nervous for Tyler and them.
If you're a crew chief and you ran all the practice and 2/3 of the race at the same air pressure with no problems, do you expect to go into the final third of the race and not have a problem?
You would think that you'd expect it, but you also have to account for the fact that you're going to be going faster, and you might have an issue like that. That's their job. Their job is to know that keep up with the race. The one thing that the crew chief's job is during the race is to call the race, know when to pit, and keep up with the racetrack. And if we're getting ready to pick up speed, you might be at a higher risk, and you have to factor that in.
I think the hard part is, if in that scenario, if it existed, and you ran your practice and you ran 2/3 of the race, and they tell you all day, hey man, your tires look great. Your tires look great. Boom, tire failure. I just don't know how. I don't know how you can manage that. I truly don't.
I don't know how. I was worried about Tyler, TJ, to your point, towards the end of the race, because that was one of the longest green flag runs. I thought for sure.
He had like 70 laps on his left side tires. So.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Like, there's guys that ran the whole race didn't have an issue. Some of like Tyler, for example, and then some guys had issues.
He was once he got the lead, he slowed his pace down a little bit. Yeah. He didn't go.
It's just listen. When I say I put majority on the teams, we're talking 51-49 here. This is very even. The tire has to be better, but the teams can do a lot to help themselves at the same time.
They don't wear out. The tire doesn't wear out. No, I'm just going to say, if I'm a fan yesterday, here's what I saw. Your tire doesn't wear out because these guys are going faster and faster as the run goes on, and they don't last. That's what I'm going to see as a fan. I'm not gonna, and you know what? As a fan, I don't give a about all this other technical stuff. All I want to know is, why is that tire popping?
And why does it last? Why doesn't it fall off?
That's what I'm saying. So I think Goodyear needs to be more. Look, man, they're.
And I think that would help. Like, if the tire fell off, we wouldn't be going as fast.
Duh.
If you just make the damn thing wear out, then they won't be going as fast, and we won't be at such high speed at lap 30.
But they're going to push it to the limits. Like the 14 had to be on cords at the end of the race yesterday, and he looked like it. But I mean, if they're on cords, they're wearing that.
We saw it at the end of the Xfinity race. Who was it? AJ stayed out, and I think he had to back his pace way down because he felt like his right front tire was coming apart. And that was, I don't know how long that was, 60, 80 laps, something like that maybe. But
to me, that's how.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like that.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't win as hard a few laps, but he was stretching it too, though.
Yeah, he ran hard. He didn't put tires on the last pit stop.
Yeah, he was stretching it.
It's almost like we talk about on here, you want the driver to have to manage the tire, and typically that
100%.
means you're managing the tire to actually have grip at the end of the run. Now it's like you got to manage the speed so that the tire don't blow up at the end of the run.
Yeah, it's not the management that I would look for.
Not the management that I want to see our sport go in that direction. So if I'm, like I said, if I'm Goodyear executive, NASCAR executive, a crew chief, or a driver, I'm pretty stressed out this morning.
Obviously they can keep working on it because they've fixed things. We've made progress from the beginning of the year with everything, wheels, tires, everything.
Can you imagine that group chat, the NASCAR Cup Series driver group chat today? Because those guys saw all their buddies and some people they don't like hit the wall hard. We heard radio communications where some of those guys who didn't even hit hard from the roof were saying, "Ow!" Like that was a
there were a few
really hard
drivers
hit.
after the race. who mentioned they had headaches. I mean, and they barely hit.
Doesn't Jason have access to that group chat?
The driver group chat?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do. They were all saying, congratulations, Tyler.
But
What a great
you've
day."
got drivers in the garage, and this has always been this way. You got a guy like Noah Gragson who is willing to buckle up and go race no matter what, right? And you got guys that have kids. You got guys that are married. But I'm tell you something, having worked with a driver and having a driver that is one of my best friends, they know when they buckle up in that race car and they put that helmet on, there's a chance they're not coming back. And they accept that. And it is really hard for people to hear that and swallow that. But I'm telling you right now, every one of those guys that climb in those cars, they know there's a chance they're not coming back. But we've gotten immune to the death part of it because it's been 20 plus years. And now, based on what these guys are feeling with their bodies when they hit, they're scared to die again. Or they're making it publicly known they're scared to die.
We've got exciting news. OfferPad wants to buy your home. Go to OfferPad.com right now and tell them all about it. You'll receive a cash offer within 24 hours.